I'm here with Marcus Camby, not just UMass legend, Atlantic 10 legend. I would say arguably the best player to ever play in the conference. Part of obviously the Final Four UMass team, the only Atlantic 10 team to make it there. Thank you for coming on. Before I kind of get into, I want to talk about your years, obviously at UMass, but this has been a busy off season, for the University of Massachusetts with Frank Martin coming in. It seems like there's a lot of momentum for the program, a lot of alumni talking about it. Can you talk a little bit just kind of about, maybe the hire, what you think it means for UMass? Obviously, they haven't been in the tournament since, 2014, but, what you think he can do for the program?
Well, I think if you look over the course of the summer in 2022, I think the MVP has to be Frank Martin. The way he's been doing, he's been injected life into a program that has been down per se from what we used to in the 90s when I was playing there and before me. But I think we had a great hire. I think Ryan Banford really hit it with this one. Frank Martin is a very credible guy, a very credible coach, a very credible man with great integrity. I had a chance to meet with him, sit down with him a couple times, and just to pick his brain a little bit, just to see his vision that he has for the program going forward. And he's been tremendous, man. I always told him that I wish I had a chance to play for you. He injects that much energy and life into you, and I think it's a great hire, and I think he's going to do great things for the University of Massachusetts.
Definitely. And obviously too, bringing on obviously Coach Kellogg, not Coach Kellogg to you, but your former, teammate.
Right.
But, how important has it been for you? And you think for a program, especially today, I feel like with all, there's a lot of transfers, there's a lot of options for players, obviously, year to year basis. But to have a program that kind of values its alumni, to have a cohesive group, seeing, like I said, you have Martin, but you also bring Kellogg on board, but to have alumni be a part of the program, how important do you think that is, for a college, for an institution?
I think it's very important, especially when you have former players and former teams who have played at a university, to bring them back into the fold, because each program, each coach always preaches about family, and family is just not the guys that you have on the team right now. It's about the people who came before you to make where you're at that much special. And Frank has been doing a great job of bringing all the guys back. He wants me back into the fold. He wants me to be, more vocal and more attending at games, which I have been since I left. And the hiring of Derek Kellogg, that was a surprise for me.
Yeah.
When I saw that go across my Twitter feed. I had to retweet that.
Yeah.
Derek Kellogg was my point guard. He's a local New England legend, growing up in Springfield, Massachusetts, and he did a tremendous job at LIU Brooklyn. So I'm happy he had a chance to come back home, get back into the fold, and we have another one of our guys that's in the area to help keep pushing this program forward. So, I got a lot of respect for Coach Martin with that hire.
Definitely. Awesome. And, obviously I want to talk about, you had referenced it, kind of the 90s, especially the early mid 90s of UMass basketball. I recently talked to Chaz Williams. Obviously he was 2014. That was the last time UMass had made the tournament, but with you, you're kind of your decision going to UMass. I think, some people may forget, they obviously Calipari, they were super successful a couple of years even before you had gotten on board. He had built this program up, for you coming on board as a freshman. Obviously, you had the attention, the accolades coming in. But what was it like for you just kind of adjusting, with the attention you were getting, as a freshman, but also kind of joining up with a team that, had success, not just in Atlantic 10, but the NCAA?
Well, with UMass, they were recruiting me like my freshman year in high school. That was one of the first schools to really start sending me letters. And, I was a guy that's, big on loyalty. And I always remember when it was time to come down to signing that who was in there when, I was just a really skinny, bony kid just trying to find my way. And I still harp back on those letters that I got from Coach Cal and the assistant coach then, Bill Bano, expressing a lot of interest in me. And, when we got down to that visit, when Cal came to my house, sat me down with my mom, after he left, she was like, "You're going with him." So, he has that gift of gab. And, I always say that he can always sell water to a well. And, I believed in him. And I believed in the vision that he had. I believed in the players that he had at the university. And, it helped a lot where, UMass was like an hour and a change away from my hometown. So it was close for me and important for me to be close to my family, especially my mom, so she can come see me play, every game and every week. And so, I was excited about that opportunity. I didn't forecast where I would be at now
Yeah.
as I was then, as an 18-year-old freshman. But I just think the maturation progress that I had as a player and as a person and as a man was definitely instilled in me by Coach Cal.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. And when you look at kind of when you came on board as freshman, your 3 years at UMass, obviously there's this kind of natural project, what do you call it? Ascension, sorry, that you guys had. Obviously, the consistent part of it was you guys were winning the A10 titles. Obviously, you guys were top dogs in the conference, but even in the NCAA tournament, I think your first year, second round, the Elite Eight, your sophomore year, and then obviously your Final Four year, your junior year. Looking back at that, especially your sophomore year, how much did that Elite Eight loss? Again, UMass had been there before, but not making the Final Four. How much did that kind of motivate you going into it? Because you guys, you lose Lou Rowe going into your junior year, sorry, being the leader, having that experience. How much was that a motivating factor for the offseason, kind of going into what I would call probably the greatest or one of the greatest NCAA basketball seasons by a team ever?
Well, I think it all started when I got there, Atlantic 10 conference. I think we have a lot of great players that came through that conference that don't get talked about. The Aaron McKees, the Rick Brunsons, the Eddie Jones, all those guys who came through that. And, the knock on the A10 was that we weren't like the ACC, we weren't the Big Ten, we didn't have these big teams. So what Coach Cal did was he made our non-conference schedule brutal. Our motto was we play anybody, anywhere, anytime. And, each year, during my freshman year, we knocked off the number one team in North Carolina. My sophomore year, we knocked off the number one team in Arkansas. And my junior year, we knocked off the number one team in Kentucky. So our non-conference schedule really, really tested us. It really proved that, despite the conference, that we were a powerhouse in the nation, and we thrived on that. And going into my sophomore year, I got better. I matured, and I think as a whole, our whole team got better. I just think that the depth that we had my sophomore year, like a lot of people like to say that our Final Four year team was the best team we had, but to me, my sophomore year team was the best team we had with Lou Rowe, R.I.P. the late great Mike Williams, Derek Kellogg, Dante, Dana, Carmelo, Edgar, in my opinion, the best backcourt that I played with in the 95-96 season. And, we had a lot of guys that contributed to the success. It wasn't just myself and it wasn't just Lou Rowe. I think as a collective unit and definitely being coached by Coach Cal really helped us achieve great, great things. And, going into my junior year, it was like, man, there's no Lou, there's no Mike, there's no Derek. Everything's on me right now. So during that summer, I just think I probably worked the hardest that I have ever worked. Going into that summer, Cal went to me, was like, well, who do you want to play next year? And I want to play Duke at Duke. I want to play like all these teams. He was like, well, you can't be able to do that, but how about Kentucky? How about we match you up against Tim Duncan and Wake Forest? How about we play Maryland down in Maryland? So he had all these tough games for us to really challenge myself and to challenge the team to make sure that I was mentally and physically prepared to go to these battles. And I took it upon myself to try to get in the best shape that I can. And I just always wanted to be held accountable with what I can bring to the team.
Yeah.
I knew I couldn't win the whole game by myself. I needed my teammates, and I just concentrated on the defensive end, the blocking shots, and rebounding the basketball, that my offense would come to me. And that was the method of success that I try to go into each game and just try to hold myself responsible for what I can do.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'm glad you mentioned the conference. I'm doing this thing with on Coach Chaney, but Coach Chaney, especially in the late 80s for the A10, was kind of the same way what Calipari did in terms of just scheduling anyone. I remember the 88 team, they would go anywhere, and obviously they had a good team, but they were number one, similar to you guys. But I mean, I know you had talked about it, but I think it was 8 or 7 top 25 teams you guys played, your junior year.
Yeah.
And, with that, I kind of want to, I think if you were coming into UMass in today or even the last 10 years, most likely you probably are going to the NBA after that first year. Obviously it was a different time. How do you think that development, helped you and prepare you for the NBA? Because obviously you had a great NBA career, and it wasn't a short career. You were there for, like I said, a great NBA career for a long time. Those 3 years in college, how do you think that helped you, and probably would help some guys that come out probably a little bit too early today?
Well, for me, I'm probably one of the guys who actually enjoyed college. I enjoyed the college life. I like being around different people, meeting new people. And I just think honestly that, after my freshman year and sophomore year, I just felt that I just wasn't ready. And it wasn't no timetable. Wasn't like Coach Cal was pushing me out to go or anything. Like I genuinely enjoyed coming in, playing with my teammates, enjoying the college atmosphere. Um, can I have went like my freshman and sophomore year? Yeah, I could have went, but who knows how my career would have played out in the NBA? I probably wouldn't have lasted 17 years that I did. But I just knew that at that time I wasn't ready naturally and physically. I was, probably like 210, 215 pounds at that time. And I still feel that I needed a lot to work on my game to get to where I wanted to be. And I just think the junior year was really solidified myself. Me winning a consensus college basketball player of the year and just leading my team to the Final Four. And, at that point, coach wouldn't let me come back. He was like, it's time. And, he felt like it was time for him as well to make that jump to the NBA as well. So I think our careers at UMass kind of mirrored each other a little bit per se. And we always wanted the best for each other. And I just think it worked out for both of us.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, about obviously, I wanted to get a couple questions in about that, about the Final Four run. But specifically, I look at that Elite Eight matchup, obviously with Georgetown. It's funny. Obviously, even on the A10, I do it for the Big East as well. I love going back. I'm 37, so that was kind of my prime years. Going into high school. That Georgetown team, obviously with Iverson, with Williams. I mean, I just was looking back, like I said, a hell of a squad. You guys as well. Was there a little bit of a shock, about that game in terms of how that went? Because obviously, you guys end up, I think, beating them by 20 plus. But, how confident were you guys going in? Like I said, you guys are consensus number one. So by all means, you guys were favored, but to have that game go as it did, kind of a relaxing way, maybe not for you, but to go into the Final Four, was that a little bit of a surprise looking back at it, that Elite Eight match?
Well, not really. Like I said before, like coach prepared us to play these top teams throughout my first 3 years at the school. And, we were number one all season long, probably besides when we started the season when Kentucky wasn't, we knocked them off. And we were playing good basketball. And going into that game, Georgetown had a lot of NBA talent on that team with AI, Jerome Williams, Shahadi White, Victor Page was a great basketball player as well. So, and Coach Thompson was over there on the sideline. So, I always had this running joke when me and AI was with teammates at Denver. I told him how I ended his college career. He didn't like that much. Yeah. But, that was the running joke that we had. But, going to that game, wow, we were just clicking on all cylinders. Carmelo and did a great job of shadowing AI as much as he could. AI is a Hall of Famer, legendary status. And, as a whole, I just think we put everything together. Everything was clicking. I had it going. Carmelo was knocking down threes. Dante and Dan, as usual, doing the dirty work for us, getting things done successfully down there. And I just think we just clicked at the same time.
Yeah. And that, I mean, just that, I'm sure, obviously, I don't know how much you relive those moments, but, again, to kind of make it, you had been there the previous year, but to make it to the Final Four, I know, obviously, you end up losing to the eventual champs in Kentucky, which I'll get to, but just to make the Final Four, to do that, not just for yourself, for Coach Calipari, your teammates, but for the university, what was that feeling like to kind of get there?
I mean, it was great, especially for the whole, New England area. Me growing up in Hartford, Connecticut, going to school in Massachusetts right up the road, just that nostalgia and the atmosphere that we brought and injecting to the area was unmatched. We had a lot of, games, not a lot of games, but, in the tournament, when you're number one seed, you get to play sort of close to home, kind of. And I think our first round was like in Providence. And then I don't know where else we went after that, but we had a lot of great road support and just the area. Like I said, the New England area was at an all-time high. Everyone was excited for the team. We definitely appreciated that, and I think we rolled off that momentum.
Yeah. And, with the Kentucky game, and I don't, you played them obviously the first game of the season. You guys beat them. Playing them again the Final Four. Do you think did that game have any such, sort of effect? The fact that maybe they saw you guys play, but that again, that's months prior, first game of the season. But do you think that played, had any effect? Seeing a team before and then playing them in the Final Four.
I think it probably benefited them more because they had the motivation. They seen what I did to them the first game, and that second game, it was tough for me. I mean, even though I got my numbers, I think I had like 25 or something like that. But that was another team you talk about had a lot of NBA talent on it.
Yeah.
With Antoine Walker, Ron Mercer, McCarty, Mark Pope, all those guys. Allen Edwards, who's now
Tony Delk on that team too.
Tony Delk was on that team. Derek Anderson. I mean, the list goes on. And Allen Edwards, who is now on Coach Frank Martin's staff at UMass. So we talked about that when I saw him a couple of months ago, and they were a loaded team. They played well. They definitely didn't forget about the first game, and they came out and they got us. I can't take no credit away from those guys. Like I said, great NBA talent that they had on that team. Well coached, of course, by Coach Pitino, and we just came up short, and that was like probably one of the toughest losses that I ever experienced at the university because we were just so close to reaching our ultimate goal, winning the championship. And, I felt that if we got a chance to get into the championship game, since we had already beat Syracuse and Hawaii already that year, that we had a good chance of winning it. But it just wasn't our night that night.
Yeah. And, obviously, you talk about your connection, your relationship with Coach Cal. Seeing Coach Calipari at Kentucky, though, do you have a point of cheering for him, or is it okay? I mean, because it's Kentucky. They obviously stopped you from that national championship, and he's there. What's that balance for you? How much do you support him?
I'm gonna lie, it was tough at first. Tough at first, but like I always say, Kentucky is probably like the 32nd team in the NBA, I per se, program because the recruits that they get, the facilities that they have down there, a blue blood school and rich in traditions. So, I knew that eventually he'll land at a great place, and he's been doing great things for the University of Kentucky. And, people always ask me about our relationship, and, he's like a father figure to me. We talk about every 1, 2 to 3 days. He'd text me out of the blue. He'd send me a picture of us together. Like just yesterday, he sent me a picture of me and him at my graduation. I had went back to school after 21 years and got my degree in 2017. So we have that kind of relationship. I'm always going to root for the guy. I live down here in Houston, Texas. So every time Kentucky goes to play Texas A&M, I drive up to the game, see him after the game, spend some time with him. So there's no love lost between us. I'm always going to be in his corner. He's my forever coach, and I have a lot of love for him.
Definitely. And you guys got statues together now too. So you know what I mean? Even now you really are permanent. It doesn't matter what happens if they're, you guys are there.
Yes, we're definitely etched in stone. That was definitely a great gift from the university, and I'm very appreciative and very thankful for that.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. I'm still waiting for my elementary school to, put one up. I average like 30.
You need one. Nate.
All right, so I'm here with Marcus Camby for 2 minutes in the A10. The most obnoxious fan base you remember, where that's not necessarily the hardest arena to play in, but just obnoxious fans in the A10.
Obnoxious fans in the A10 will probably have to be. That's a tough one.
You can give a couple.
Fans. Well, I'm gonna have to say up in Olean, New York, and St. Bonaventure's, they were rowdy up there. Back then, when I played, West Virginia was in the A10, and they were really rowdy down there, especially when the guy was shooting off the musket in there. So it was very intense.
Yeah. No, I hear that. All these new A10 people, they forget West Virginia and that musket. I tell you,
Yeah.
and talk to some of the 88 guys, and they're like, that just shook me. That was something else.
Scares you every time.
Yeah. Um, you obviously were pretty dominant during your time, but was there a guy you remember on an opposing, again, within the A10 that, kind of just gave you a run for the money? You knew you had to have a little extra get up.
Um, I'd probably say they're both George Washington guys. Giga Dare, like my freshman year, and Alexander Cool. I think that's his name, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Yeah, he was a big load, especially for me at that time. I was like 210, 215. So I always had my work cut out for him. And, George Washington was always like a little thorn in our side. He was always able to knock us off periodically here and there. So we had some great with those guys. A lot of respect for those guys. Definitely. And Coach Jarvis. Yes.
Yeah. No, definitely. Is there a game? I know this is probably hard, but a game, a home game at UMass that if you could go back to just to relive, just to be in that atmosphere during your time again, let's say home game for UMass that you'd go back to.
Man, so many. The matchup that we had my junior year when Wake Forest came to town with me and Tim Duncan. I mean, just like the build up, they built it up like Russell versus Chamberlain, and just the atmosphere that we had, the amount of scouts that were in the gym that night, and just all the hoopla surrounding around that was probably one of the most hyped up live games that we had at the Mullins in a long time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then a little outside the A10, but being drafted number 2, and this could be totally kind of like a fan moment, but for me, like I said, you look at history. I don't know how much you do in terms of because you're a part of it, but that 1996 draft class. I still, I just got the commemorative edition, the Slam magazine. I gave it to my son who's 6. That cover, Marbury, Ray Allen, Kobe, just being a part of that, looking back at that, but being a part of that draft class, being drafted number 2, kind of what does that mean, certain something to you being a part of that class? And do you have that magazine?
Oh, I definitely have that magazine. I have it blown up. My house, my mom's house, my sister's house, it's everywhere. But just to be a part of that, I'm kind of biased per se, but arguably probably the best draft class in the history that we had. If you just look at all the accomplishments that each player has achieved during that year and so on and so on. And, just to be in the draft class with the late, great Kobe Bryant, what he's done to the game, what he's meant to the game, with 2-time Steve Nash, 2-time MVP winner, AI is a Hall of Famer, Marbury, Ray Allen, NBA All-Star, Hall of Famer. I mean, the list goes on and on. Jermaine O'Neal, Kerry Kittles. I mean, we had a stacked class, and just to be a part of that, I'm very thankful. I didn't go into that season trying to be the number 1 pick. I just wanted to get drafted. It didn't matter where I went. But once my representatives told me that I'd be 1 or 2, I thought it was a no-brainer for me to come out in that draft class. So I'm very thankful, very honored to be drafted number 2 by Toronto Raptors to kick off my career. And, I wouldn't take it back for anything in a moment. When I was in Denver, Melo used to always say that 2003 draft class was the best draft class with him and, LeBron and D Wade and Bosh and those guys. And, arguably so, they had great talent, but I just think the overall body of work of the 96 draft class propels it over everybody.
Oh, definitely. I'm with you on that 100%. Easy. Yeah.